the question is, how do we maintain our core values as the ecosystem grows? And I think the most important element to that is first identifying what are our core values and having the conversations around those things as a community when it comes to standards, collaboration, and just how we work together towards common goals. And I just don't necessarily think we have those conversations enough. You know, EthCC, Devcon, they bring us together and help us have those conversations. But outside of that, we kind of fall back into our little crevices and just continue doing our thing. And so I think to continue to hold on to this energy, take it back to where we're all coming from, and to remember that you all are ambassadors for those core values that you get in places like this. So each and every one of you does have a responsibility to do something in your lives to represent this community the right way. There are ethics involved in what we do as developers of software for an open and free world.
I'm going to a tiny bit to what you say about core value, because from what I'm hearing, there's something I don't like about it. And something about unifying, which I think is quite ambitious, if not unrealistic, based on how grown, the ecosystem, you know, the number of people who care grew. And the thing is more like core value, like what is a minimum we can agree on? What kind of minimum set of value, like, is what we can agree on? I guess maybe that's core value, I guess. But one of the important aspects from my end is to get more people, teach them about why we do things the way we do, why we care about privacy, why we care about censorship resistance, why we care about the fairness, and make sure that those values do not get dissipated by greed or by people trying to make you believe that it's not important. And so we have seen this kind of attacks on the core value coming from many different project people trying to subvert them by saying, oh, it's faster, it's more convenient, it's what X, Y, Z. And we need to push builders, enable builders, and teach them how, what are kind of the thing that makes us unique, what makes us together.
So I would say first, thanks, Alex, for hosting this panel. I think there's no better person than you to ask that question. When we started in the space 6 years ago, I think every IP had your name on it. Every piece of code has had a trace of you on it. So I think thinking about core value, you're really the right person to ask that. The way we think about it is a lot about, at Argent, being more on the wallet side, on the user side. It's a lot about making the hard choices. So probably one of the core value of Ethereum is around decentralization, around censorship resistance. And we have to now, we're on a path to onboard the next billion users. And there's the easy way to do it, to pick a few custodians, to manage the wallet, or to have other technology that are censorable, or we make the hard choice. And we are building harder technology, a longer route that you know very well with your past projects around how do we give users the power to have control around their assets, their identity, while being safe and being fully in control, being censorship resistant, being decentralized enough. So that means being sometimes slower, making harder choices. And I think we have, as a participant in the ecosystem, to make sure we keep pushing for that.
So I feel most users are probably using Coinbase or custodial wallets. I feel like a lot of the top DeFi protocols are actually like centralizing. And the question is, like, are we getting more and more centralized in all ways? Are we having less and less users own their own keys? And what can we do about it, right? So the question is, are we becoming more centralized? And the second question is, how can we avoid that?
You can start.
I mean, so if I understand the question is, how can we remain decentralized when pressure is pushing towards more centralization, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so market forces always push towards centralization because you have this brand, you have this project, you have this game. You want to be the only one controlling it. You want to control your flow there. You want to control the user experience. You want to control how things goes. And so it's extremely hard, as you said, to maintain this sort of decentralization. And I actually don't think it's necessarily a problem. It's necessarily a problem because we start to have the tech that enable us to remain within the spirit, which is, as I said, fairness, non-custodial, censorship resistance, while being able to provide environment that enables decentralization. So we need to mix both. We need to have both. We need places where I know for a fact that it will always run, it will always be up, and I can run for my country because of the war and get away with my value because this is how I'm planning to survive afterwards. At the same time, it's okay to make trade-off at other layers, at lower layers, where you can build your own application, your own game that doesn't have necessarily the same requirement. So I don't think we need to fight them. We need to embrace it in a very, very dogmatic way, meaning the core values that we described before needs to remain. We need to focus on keeping those layers neutral for where they are, and also enables the people who are looking for centralization and for more control to be able to do it within the respect of the value that we share.
So I think you're right. We are going towards more centralization. It's a trend right now. I think again, I have a very specific perspective on wallet, on users, and we were for the past few years focusing on the negative, meaning there was such a huge gap between decentralized and centralized system. The experience for users, the security of centralized system was realistically much better. And this gap is narrowing down to a level where I believe now or within a few months, a self-custody system can be as good or even better than a centralized system. And suddenly we can focus on the positive. And decentralization has a lot of positive value for users. People do enjoy and value freedom. And that's something they don't have and will never have with centralized system. And I think once you can lower the gap in UX and give that freedom, you have probably a formula where centralized system can't compete with.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with some of the stuff that was said. You know, I personally, I look at a lot of the narrative in our community around things like centralization and things of that nature, and I find it to be incredibly dogmatic in its own right in that, you know, we go to the gaming industry and we say, hey, you're all oppressing your users, make some NFTs and liberate your users from the oppressed world that they've created for them. And obviously they're not going to respond positively to that. And so I think by focusing on the properties of the technology that we're describing, I think we're then enabling, you know, people to now gravitate towards these decentralized technologies, because I think at the end of the day, the tech is there. Actually need decentralized solutions. And it's just about actually getting people to understand the merit and the utility behind the tech beyond just trying to convince them that you're right and they're wrong.
No one can hear anything, so we can speak about any topic.
This is just a conversation with us and the five people on the front. I'm happy with that.
No, Julian just there doesn't hear us.
We can't hear either. We can't even hear ourselves.
So here's the weird thing that I thought that this like the last bull market was different from the other ones. The last bull market in which that suddenly we had a lot of people hating us, right? People were coming and describing, okay, what is a crypto? Before, nobody, barely, either people knew what cryptocurrency was, that they loved it, or they just had no idea what it was, right? And suddenly we have this new wave of people just saying things like, okay, cryptocurrency is a thing where you trade monkey pictures by burning the Amazon, right? And I think we got that new hate was something new from this last bull market. So the merge happened. Will people love us now? Or will they have the next thing that will still hate us for? So the merge, will people love us after the merge? Right? What's the next thing that we'll need to do to like, seems like the energy saving is like off the hook? What's the next thing we need to do to take on those that next public, right?
So the reduction in carbon footprint, we see it was super important for users, probably even more for enterprise. So if we want to get enterprise to join the movement, to be part in that, I think that was significant. But as long as we speak in terms of bull and bear markets, we are failing and a lot of people will hate us. As long as it's about speculation, as long as we don't solve anyone's problem, we are not in a place where billions of people will like us. And I think this year is really a year where at Devcon I see a change in narrative, where from the opening ceremony, you see really people wanting to see the application layer, developer out there work on those non-speculative use cases. And that's really what we need. I think we all believe in the potential, but it's time to show and to see it.
Actually, I do have a couple of comments on this specifically when it comes to the non-speculative, degen aspect of crypto, right? So at StarkWare, we have two products, StarkX, StarkNet, one network I'm in. And among our customers, existing customers, we have a company called Sorare. I don't know if you know about it, but Sorare is probably, and if you didn't, it's also normal, but it's probably the only truly successful on-chain gaming, Web3 game in the planet. It's making real money selling fantasy football to users worldwide. They own the licensing from all the clubs all over Europe. They own the NBA rights for fantasy football in the US and the Major League Baseball League. And the user they have like maybe 2 or 4 million active users. I don't exactly remember, monthly active users. They are not blockchain people. They never touch a wallet in their life. But everything that Sorare does, they do it in a very blockchain way. Everything is core principle. Everything is self-custodial. And so this is what kind of adoption that will bring love. When all of a sudden, I'm no longer, in the case of iTunes, where in 2000, I don't even remember in 2007 when iTunes was big, there was this story about all those parents who had those amazing libraries of songs that the kid wanted to inherit it after their death, and they die, and basically iTunes say, oh, but by the way, you just were renting it for your life. And so this is where self-custody matters. All of a sudden, it's not about just subscription. I'm no longer just waiting for this company to decide tomorrow what they're going to do with me. I can pass it along to my kids who have same memories. And another company that actually is building StarkNet right now is a company dedicated to rap. So to rap music. So we have in France this YouTube channel called Le Règlement. They have 5 million subscribers on their YouTube channel. Most successful rap YouTube channel in France. And so a year and a half ago, they started to work on a card game to support independent rap artists. And they launched like roughly the game 4 months ago on StarkNet. And the first reaction was, fuck, it's NFTs. It's a money grab. It's going to suck. Fuck you, whatever. 3 weeks later, like a month later, 2 months later now, they have all the community that DSM changed their mind. They love the game. They have 10,000 active users. And once again, not blockchain people. And so this is the kind of adoption will bring love. When all of a sudden we solve a problem that people feel, how do I can help? How can I share? How can I transfer value in a way that is no longer dependent on the goodwill of a specific group of people? And so this kind of adoption is what I'm looking for, and I'm very excited about.
Yeah, I think we kind of shied away from the question a little bit. But yeah, I guess how I think we combat this re-centralizing of the infrastructure layer as we're seeing all around the blockchain ecosystem right now is by building better things. And I know that that's not something we want to hear, but if we make it easier for people to interact with this technology through the actual utility that it provides, by making it functional for individuals, then it doesn't really matter, if centralized RPC providers are there or things of that nature. And so I don't think we should be so afraid of these other people. I think that they're, doing what they can as an organization, but at the end of the day, we all know that coming decentralization is going to commoditize the protocol layer and ensure that access is available to every single one of us without their oppressive gated control. And that's just a fact. And that's because we're leading towards a post-scarce world where the cost of creating this technology is just going to go down to the point where only the participants are going to be the ones who are able to see value from the thing that they're participating in. So it is only a matter of time. Doesn't really matter what the other people have to say, to be totally honest, because the community, the economics, just everything will speak for itself. And then at that point, all those other people are going to have to, also come and join this world in an authentic way.
So back on the merge thing, I think I want to talk about ossification, right? Because the merge happened. The merge was this like huge change to Ethereum, and I'm starting to hear a lot of core developers saying things like, "We want the merge to be the last of the big changes. We want the protocol to be more ossified, to be more slow, to change less." And that's good for some reasons, but that's also bad in others. And mainly it's that there are other things that can be done that are probably too late to do on Ethereum, right? It's probably too late to change the token standard and things like that. So my question is, do you see things that are happening in other blockchains or other places that people can do because it's very small, and you wish that we could bring that to Ethereum?
Yeah, I think we definitely can look to others for inspiration, especially people within our community, which at the end of the day, these other blockchains are. I don't necessarily agree that ossification is a bad thing. I think there's a reason sometimes we want things like democracy, community-controlled things in general, self-regulated things to be somewhat slow. Maybe not clunky like they are in the world, but slower than we wish they could be. And so I definitely do, I definitely smile when people talk about, oh, it took so long for the merge and all of these things, when they have no idea the amount of work and effort that went into every single line of code that was written. And so I'm personally very proud of just the journey that we've gone on to get to this point, but I definitely only think that it's the beginning, and Ethereum is only going to evolve and grow from here. And I don't believe that, like Bitcoin, we're going to be stuck in our ways and stop ourselves from progressing for the sake of the world.
So I'm going to start because Itamar and I have the same experience on this. So I'm going to start because in the context of StarkNet, we literally said, forget the legacy and let's start from scratch. For a couple of technical reasons. For a very clear technical reason, which is StarkNet is not EVM compatible from the get-go, so why is the point, just taking what already exists? Let's make things different. When you start from scratch, there is plenty of things you can learn from other projects. You can learn, for instance, even recently, Aptos consensus model is super interesting. The way they manage, this notion of object and the way they manage the storage makes some part of parallelization super efficient. And this is kind of thing that obviously can't really change right now on ETH. But when you're a younger project, when you start from scratch, you can adapt them. And so the cool thing from my experience is that we can adapt it and provide it to the Ethereum community. We don't have to follow what has been the standard on the EVM. We don't have to follow all the thing that seemed like a smart idea back then, but turned out to be mistakes. And I'm not going to name them. We all know them. And so when it comes to StarkNet specifically, the cool thing I'm saying in terms of project building and the new thing they're building is they're taking advantage of three things, which are the fact that on StarkNet you have cheap computation, you have cheap core data, and you have account abstraction. And so those three things doesn't seem like much. But when you combine them, all of a sudden, plenty of things start to appear. And so, for instance, there is this company on StarkNet that is doing storage proof of Ethereum states. They are enabling to do trustless verification of past history of Ethereum directly on there too. So what is it useful for? Snapshot for voting. All of a sudden, I no longer have to, I can actually do on-chain voting, but using VL2. Because I can prove that I actually own the token back in the day, back when the vote started. Another company that does super interesting thing is, because you have cheap computation, you can have a lot of on-chain gaming. So there is a company that did like an on-chain physics engine. Where you can make collision, you can have like a Pong. You can play Pong against someone else. Is it useful? I don't know. But that's the market forces to decide if it's cool. And so, because some gaming started to be big, what happened is because of abstraction, people started to do things about the wallet itself. And so, for instance, I'm never going to play a game if I have to sign every transaction myself. And so what they're starting to do is session keys, meaning the ability for you to set on your own wallet a key that is only valid for 6 hours and only valid for a specific set of transactions. And because on StarkNet we don't have EOAs, we have smart contract wallets, you can have a very awesome, plugin system. And I'm sure Itamar is going to expand on a tiny bit on this. And just to conclude, just on this last bit about icon abstraction, a company based in New York actually is building for gaming an application a system that enables any game to use the security of your phone, of this secure enclave to sign transaction. So you actually are signing transaction using your Face ID. So it might not be, great for high-value transaction because maybe your phone is hacked, whatever. But for a lot of transactions that are not as high value, this creates a much better user experience and look and feel to get adoption for mass users. And so I'm going to leave it to Itamar to talk more about, as an application, what does it mean to start from scratch, having seen the two systems. And so, yeah.
Ossification is something that is probably the reason I was never excited by Bitcoin. And why I was excited by Ethereum. They had a vision, they would evolve and follow that vision. I think as a pure settlement layer, maybe it's okay to get ossified and to slow down development. My worry is we are making this a religion, and you see a lot of L2s wanting to stick to Ethereum and to the EVM equivalence as a religion. And we are acting as if Ethereum is solving world hunger, and suddenly we just need to scale that. And we are forgetting that today we are not solving people's problem. We are not doing a good job at that. So we don't have something great that we suddenly need to scale. There's still a lot more work to do. The reason we are sitting here next to StarkNet, well, StarkWare building StarkNet, is they did say fuck you to a lot of that. And there's a lot I don't know about where we'll be in 10 years. What I can guarantee, and it's not about believing it, I guarantee we will never have a global open financial system where we are holding some kind of secret, and if your secret is compromised, you have lost all your money and all your savings. And if I have your secret, I have your money. This is absurd and will never happen. And I wish people will wake up to that, especially layer 2s that have an opportunity. Ethereum cannot change tomorrow. Layer 2s have that opportunity to change, and instead they are sticking to that model and they will stay niche. And I think what StarkNet did is very brave. And it's the hard choice because it's much harder maybe to onboard new developers. It's a new paradigm, but it's the only right choice, the only way forward. And that's the reason we are, in a great partnership. And the reason I said before we can compete with, it's not about user experience, it's really about losing the fight. I guarantee that Ethereum will end up with 5 custodians holding everyone's funds if we do not sort that out. And the ossification is not the way forward.
Yeah, I guess that's interesting because we're all here because of Ethereum, right? And like we actively contribute to many different blockchain ecosystems, but to downplay the significance of Ethereum while at the Ethereum conference is, I think, a little bit impractical. There's a lot more to following conventions, enabling EVM compatibility. I mean, we see it with projects who don't have the funding to go and learn 10 different programming languages and objectively decide which is best for them. They're doing what makes sense at the time, which is following the standards of the day. Do people necessarily, or did people necessarily think JavaScript would be where it's at today? Probably not. And I definitely think, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I mean, we contribute to many different ecosystems, but I think to underplay the significance of the importance of Ethereum's success to the success of everyone else is to not necessarily appreciate, I think, why we're all here today.
So I just want to, you took an example, which was JavaScript. So the success of JavaScript today as a programming language is basically V8, which was a full rewrite by Google of the entire stack, of the entire interpretation engine. No, so I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say that if the equivalent on ETH would be to basically to make a better system and rewrite a backward compatibility with VM, that would be a good system. If I could run the VM code on another infrastructure that is actually more performant or other things, why would I bother? And this is not undermining ETH. Saying that the EVM is not the ultimate VM of all time, I don't think is undermining ETH. Like, and so when I'm trying to say that as an L2, you don't have to follow the same like design mistake that were made in the past. You should learn from it. Should we make it compatible with Solidity is a worthy goal, and actually for the context of StarkNet, we are. There is literally the RAP team right here. Where is the RAP team? Here, the going. So we are trying to, but all those takes time to develop. And about the ossification itself, I'm actually quite a fervent proponent of ossification, because my fear is that we are trying to bring more features and forgetting at the end of the day what matters is decentralization, and bringing more features tend to make it harder and harder to run on our machines. And my personal goal would be for the network to run on the phone. And I'm worried under the current state that we are not reaching that path. We are not making the choice that will lead us to this. And so I'd rather see L1 reduce its feature set and make itself more expensive for L2s, and have those L2s make all the work required to be efficient for the rest of the work, for the rest of the application to work. We need a backbone. ETH is that backbone, that's for sure. Do that backbone to be a heavy one or a small one is a choice we need to make, and my personal take is a small one.
Okay, so last question, but so funny story. When I left the Ethereum Foundation in 2018, I started giving talks to people with precisely that idea that I don't think that you can, this idea where all your money is based on one information, and if you make too many copies of it, you get robbed. If you make too little copy of them, you lose all your money. And I started talking, and I remember giving a talk where I said that usability was more important than scalability. And it was something that I deeply believed. And I thought that usability would be solved by 2018. And that did not happen at all. What ended up happening is that 2 years later, I had a startup that would charge, where just to sign up, you had to spend like $100 in gas. And that's sort of what happened. But I would say that a lot of those early ideas that I was talking about survived on Argent, especially now that Argent has a layer 2. And my question is, what do we need to take on the next billion users? Is that usability? Is that scalability? Is that something else? What is the next thing that we need?
So I can guarantee that by Q1 next year, we have something on your phone that my mom can use. So yes, we have the usability. My mom has no need for it. So the only thing we need is thousands of dApp developers to make something my mom needs. I made it possible for her to use it, but she will not speculate on JPEGs, on ETH, or on whatever next token. Now it's really the fight is on the next layer, which is the app layer. We need to solve people's problem. That's all we need.
And so to solve the app layer, I'm going to go back to this question of centralization versus decentralization. I actually have a theory, controversial one, which is you cannot have you cannot have a game. You cannot have application with less financial value running on the same layer than the transaction environment with high financial value. What I mean by this is, imagine tomorrow there is this amazing ticketing app enabling you to buy and sell your ticket for your concert. And all of a sudden, it's today on Ethereum, on L1. All of a sudden, what's going on is Bitcoin crash, ETH crash, and the gas price go crazy. And all of a sudden, I can no longer sell. Why the fuck? Why the sale of my ticket is influenced by the price of Bitcoin or price of ETH? And so what we do need is a way to have fractal scaling, which is like something I truly believe. A way to have application that needs to live together, and connect to one another if needed, to resync back. And so this was like an old vision of sharding, but this started to become reality now with like specific rollups, ZK rollups specifically, because it has this ability of recursiveness. And so the end point of this is actually Sorare. Single app running its own chain, its own L2 or L3, L4, whatever, settling back to L2 to whenever needed, when a user wants to sell on OpenSea. And so that's not what we need for mass adoption. It's a requirement. We need this infrastructure. And this infrastructure is now there. So now what we need is good devs, good project, showing up and building new cool app. And I think we're starting to see that. Very interesting thing coming up.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much more to add. We need people to build stuff for people to use. I think where the biggest issue is that we're not really focusing on what are the core primitives that actually make up these future applications. What do we need for Uber to exist? Well, we need marketplace standards, we need insurance, we need peer-to-peer communication. We need so many things beyond just an Uber app. And so I think what we need to start thinking is what are the primitives that make up the real world, and how can we emulate those primitives in a way that enables us to build these new decentralized forms of Uber or whatever. But at the end of the day, Uber is not just an app. It's a bundling of a billion different things, many different companies in their own right that enable them to then have access to the users they do. So yeah, what I really think we need to start thinking about is really supporting maybe people not out in the crypto industry, maybe people who don't really have all the words, they don't have the inside connections, but they have really big ideas and they have really good insights that they're bringing from other places, and to think about how we can empower them to be leaders in our community and to not just revert back to we've seen each other a bunch, and so we know we trust each other, and that's good enough. So yeah, my hope is that we start to build bridges to the real world and help bring forth these new wave of applications, because I agree, at the end of the day, we need people to build cool stuff.
Well, first, I would like to thank the people here on the front. That was important. Second, thanks for the sponsors for the great drinks you're having and the good food, good free food. And thank you, Adrian, Itamar, and Luis for the great discussion. Thanks for everyone. A round of applause.
Thank you, AVSA. Woo!